Ursula von der Leyen. I couldn't think of a better segue into Secretary Kerry than these very important contributions from Ursula. Welcome, John. It's so great to see you. I guess you heard what also Ursula said about having a friend in the White House. What agenda will we expect from the new president? I think you work very, very close with the president elect. You already heard stronger transatlantic cooperation. You heard Paris Agreement. Are we expecting too much too soon from the new president, or is he going to deliver first day on these topics?
Well, Borger, great to be with you. Thank you very much, and I'm delighted to follow President Ursula von der Leyen, who I had the pleasure of working with when she was defense minister, and I think she's doing a great job as the president of the commission. The answer to your question is no, you're not expecting too much, and yes, it will happen. And I think it will happen with greater speed and with greater intensity than a lot of people might imagine. In effect, the citizens of the United States have just done a great reset. We've done a great reset. And it was a record level of voting. What astounds me is that as many people still voted for the level of chaos and breach of law and order and breaking the standards. And I mean, you can run a long list and still it attracted attention. And I think that the underlying reason for that, Borger, is something that everybody has to examine. I think Europe has to look at that with Brexit and the rising nationalistic populism, which is really one of the priorities that we all have to address. You can't dismiss it. It has to be listened to. It has to be understood. We have had it just manifested. And Europe has it too, in various countries to greater or lesser degree. It's a reflection of the inability of democratic governments in many parts of the world to deliver. And I just have to put it bluntly. We're certainly primary exhibit. We're exhibit number one. The world's moving faster. It's a digital world moving at digital pace. And everything is moving faster. Ideas, people, goods, but not government. Government just has to find a way to move faster and to address more of the real concerns of its citizens. Or there will be, I think, an increasing backlash. I think what we've won is a reprieve. And I think, therefore, the notion of a reset is more important than ever before. I personally believe, Borger, that we're at the dawn of an extremely exciting time. And if you can get away from the craziness of the politics of chaos that have consumed so many, and the politics of identity politics, I think that there's a real opportunity here to look and see that even as all this craziness is going on around us, there are really amazingly positive things happening. And one of them is in the private sector. I believe no government is fundamentally going to make the climate crisis go away. Government's best effort is going to be to create a structure which will make it possible for certain things to happen. And the next opportunity for that structure to be fully defined is Glasgow. Now, I don't believe, and I think I know Joe Biden believes this, it's not enough just to rejoin Paris in the United States. It's not enough for us to just do the minimum of what Paris requires. I had the pleasure of negotiating Paris for the United States and being there in those euphoric moments. But I also remember saying to people at the end of the vote, the sort of gaveling in of the agreement, I remember saying, nobody should leave here believing that we have held the Earth's temperature to 2 degrees centigrade, or that we've even created the capacity to guarantee that. We haven't. The best that we've done is send a message to the marketplace that 190 countries plus are going to all move in the same direction to try to deal with the climate crisis. And that means that people who allocate capital have an opportunity to look at the largest market the world has ever had. 196 countries, all doing the same thing, all trying to move to change their energy policy and deal with climate crisis. And that's the biggest market the world's ever known, folks. It's a 4.5 billion to 5 billion person market today. It's going to go up to 9 billion in the next 30 years. And the private sector now is beginning to really see this. Borger, yours was the stage where the letter from Larry Fink and BlackRock came out, and it put squarely in front of a lot of these CEOs the issue of stakeholder versus shareholder, which is really at the bottom of what I was talking about the dysfunctionality of government and the reaction of citizens. It's shareholder versus stakeholder. And the issue is whether or not we're going to move fast enough to provide for what people need at this moment. I think the greatest opportunity we have to do that is in dealing with the climate crisis. But I want to be very blunt with everybody here. Even if we did everything we promised to do in Paris, every nation, and we're not, the Earth's temperature is still going to increase to 3.7 degrees. And because we're not doing everything, only 6 nations have legal policies in place to meet the standard. Because we're actually heading to 4.1 or 4.5 degrees. Now, all the effects we're seeing today of glaciers melting and fires raging and floods, inundating and so forth, all of that is an Earth that is at about 1.2 degrees. And we're talking about blowing through 1.5 and 2 and so forth. So any of you involved in risk analysis know exactly where we're heading here. And therefore, we have to move faster. That's what has to happen. And the entities that can move the fastest, I believe, is the private sector. ESG is now in every discussion in every boardroom. Many, many more financial institutions are looking for, what was fashionably called impact investing, but everybody's now considering how do we have an impact that's positive and meet the ESGs. The global development standards, the SDGs, are being talked about more. And I think the private sector is, if we unleash the full power of it, if we bring people together in the greatest innovation R&D consortium yet to figure out what technologies can advance this battle faster and fastest, I think we're going to see an enormous turnaround in global attitudes and in what people are willing to do and to embrace going forward. Joe Biden is going to rejoin on day one, the moment after he's inaugurated. He will sign, put America back in. We're going to have there will be, I'm not part of an administration at this point, but I'm just saying the Biden administration will focus on every sector of the American economy. There will be a 2035 goal to achieve net neutrality with respect to power production. Believe me, that's an aggressive goal, but it's achievable. The fact is that under the Obama Climate Action Plan, our goal was to have a 32% reduction by 2030. We're at 32% today. You might say, well, how could that happen under Trump? Well, it happened under Trump because while Trump pulled out of the Paris Agreement, 38 states in America have passed renewable portfolio laws, and the governors all agreed to stay in. More than 1,000 mayors in America agreed to stay in. So we've had all kinds of things happening at local levels, and we're ready to come back in and lead and help to raise the ambition in Glasgow to accelerate this incredible capacity for a transformation in the private sector. I'm actually very excited, very bullish about the potential of what we can do. Now, one thing, it's not enough to say we've got to get back into Paris and we've got to meet the Paris Agreement and we're going to be 2050. or in the case of China, 2060 net neutrality. I personally am unwilling to see our country buy into that formula. Yes, it's good to have the end goal, but it's going to be meaningless if we don't have the goals in between. So we've got to hit the 2020, we've got to have 2025, 2030, 2035, 2040. And hopefully, and I believe this is more than possible, we're going to do everything faster than 2050. Well, last night, I took part in Governor Brown had a University of California session, and Xie Zhenhua, who many of you know is the Chinese interlocutor on climate, he and I have worked together for years. We got together when I first became secretary and got China and the US working together to move towards Paris, which helped us get the Paris Agreement done. Last night, I heard words from Xie Zhenhua that were more than encouraging about the potential for the US and China to immediately begin to try to work again in the same fashion. And so it remains to be discovered if we can make that meaningful. But if we do, then the marketplace gets a whole new signal. And the private sector has greater assurance about where governments are going, what the future is. So I think this is a very important moment. Sorry, thank you.
No, thank you, John. This is so insightful, and it gives us also really an insight into the thinking of the new administration. We're unfortunately running a little bit short on time, but I would like to have a follow-up question. We will have then to use a minute, 1.5 on that. It's a combination of several things. I think you are sharing now the ambition of the president-elect in the field of climate change, also mobilizing the private sector. We have seen that the price of, for example, solar has fallen to 1/10 in 10 years. There are huge opportunities here. But this ambitious policy, how is the Biden administration going to get it through the Senate and the Congress? And we know that it's also a very polarized US after this election. And the president-elect is trying to mend, but do you think it's possible in the coming years to mend this? Or do you think this polarization is going to continue for the 4 years? And you have a 1.5 to answer this very easy question.
I think Joe Biden is going to make every effort to try to reach out. I mean, the secret to making a change, Borga, is good politics. You got to listen to people in good politics. You can't run over them roughshod. And Joe is a good listener. And he really wants to bring the country together. I thought that was why he was the perfect person with the best narrative to win. And he did. And I think now he can go out and meet with people who didn't vote for him and talk to them and bring people on board. And that's the task of leadership. That's what defines leadership. Franklin Roosevelt didn't have everybody behind him, and Joe won't either. But I think he can have enough to begin to move forward. Secondly, the fight for the control of the Senate is still there with Georgia, with 2 Senate races up in January. Now, I'm not sitting here with brimming optimism that says we're going to win back the Senate, but the Senate will be close enough no matter what. And there is a shot, but it will be close enough that somebody like a Susan Collins or a Mitt Romney or Lisa Murkowski or any others could join to make a majority at any moment. And I think those politicians are going to react to the feeling of the people that they want a Senate that works now. They want a Congress that works now. And my message, I know the president's message to the Congress will be, look, guys, if you don't get your act together, the United States of America cannot fully come back with the credibility that it deserves and needs and that the world wants it to have. Our government has to work. You're going to go out and tell countries, be a democracy, you better make your own home government work. And I think that's an imperative. And then finally, I just think that the policies that Joe is going to pursue, Borga, are going to be not divisive. They're fixing the healthcare, dealing with COVID. Ursula could not have been more correct. We've got to get that under control. I think that will be a primary focus, restoring the economy, getting the economy moving. And we'll try our hardest, all of us who have anything to do with the administration, whether as a supporter or participant, people are going to work to try to depolarize, talk common sense, respect people, and begin to rebuild the fiber of our democracy.